So it was kindergarten,
Okay.
probably around the year 2000, if I was to guess. I didn't keep track that well. But I had a friend named Natalie, and her and my sister and I would ride to school together. And so on this particular day, I was in the cafeteria of the school, and I saw Natalie just booking it, just running through the cafeteria. And I was like, oh, crap, she's in trouble. I got to help. So I start running. I'm running through the cafeteria after because I'm like, I don't know if there's like a fight we're going to do or something like that, or maybe she just needs somebody. Like, I'm going to be here. She is my friend. I'm going to be here for her. And so I get there, and she's run to these like trash cans. And I was like, okay, I'm not sure what this is about. She turns around and just on the floor. And it splashes up and gets on my pants.
Oh, I love that.
And I was just like, I have misread this situation completely.
Yep.
I was on a completely different page than reality. I was thinking I was going to swoop in and help her.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be a good friend, but all I did was get vomit on my pants. So sometimes you have to make sure that when you walk into a situation, you actually understand what's going on.
That's true. That's true.
We're discussing how that's relevant with the Bible on this show today.
This is the Thriving Man Podcast with David and Reese Maxwell. These weekly shows are designed to help you remove the confusion from your life and make real progress with your growth. No matter where you are or where you're going, we're here to help you live a life you can be proud of. So welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast.
Welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast, where our goal is to help you get out of survival mode and into living a life that you can be proud of. I'm Reese.
And I'm David.
And today we are talking about what the Bible is not. As we heard from my story a little bit earlier, my tragic moment, sometimes walking into something and making an assumption about it can cause you a lot of grief.
Yeah.
So we don't want you to do that with the Bible. And honestly, to be real, a lot of people do this with the Bible.
They do. They look at the Bible and they kind of assume what it is. They say, well, I've always heard this about the Bible, or this one time I heard someone say this. And we kind of go in with a misconception of what it is. And what a lot of people do is they use that kind of as a smoke screen to not read it for themselves and not really try to understand it.
I'm about to say, the other one is you'll try to read it.
Yeah.
But then you'll get the complete wrong thing out of it.
Yeah.
That was more my camp. Like this, what we're about to talk to you guys about was one of the most helpful lessons for me. Whenever I went to Bible college, I had a required course was Bible study.
Yeah.
And this is one of the first things I talked about. And it blew my mind. I was shook. I was like, I've been reading the Bible for years. Wrong,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, it's
And
true.
I don't regret the reading that I did, but I came with a lot of conclusions when I was younger that just weren't true because I was on a different page
Yeah.
than the Bible actually was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is a invaluable lesson. Take notes, apply this so you don't make the same mistake I did until that moment.
Yeah, and that's what you want to do is when you approach the Bible with the right mindset, it really helps you understand the Bible better. Just like when you approach a relationship with someone with the right mindset, you're going to have a better relationship. And so, if you come in knowing, okay, this person is from this background, we connect in this way, that way, it's going to help you understand her a whole lot better and be able to build a relationship with her. And so that's what you want to do with the Bible. Understand what it is and understand what it isn't. Because a lot of us, we approach the Bible with this kind of mindset of, okay, the Bible isn't these things. And that can kind of hurt us in how we read it.
Yeah. So here's the first one that the Bible isn't. This might shock you. The Bible isn't a rule book.
It's true.
Now, I love pastors, but I've heard this thing many times at many youth camps, many conventions. I've heard people say this. The Bible is basic instructions before leaving Earth.
Yeah.
That's what Bible stands for. Basic instructions before leaving Earth.
Yeah,
No, that's a rule book mentality.
it is.
That's
It
thinking,
is.
okay, so I'm going to the Bible, and it's going to be a collection of tips and tricks, like
Yeah.
YouTube style.
Yep.
50 tips to live a life well lived.
Yeah.
That's what the Bible's going to be. So when I read this verse, it's going to show me what I'm supposed to do. Wrong.
Well, and a lot of times we approach the Bible wanting that. You know, give
That's
me
a good point.
Give me the 5 keys for prosperous living. And sometimes
That sounds like a
you know,
book.
yeah. As ministers, we're kind of guilty of only presenting that side. There are a lot of good truths in there and a lot of
Absolutely.
keys for living. But that's not just what the Bible is. And sometimes that's all that we're presented with. So we kind of think, oh, if I read, it's going to give me the 2 keys to this, the 5 keys to that, the 3 secrets of this. Well, there are a lot of those things in there, but the Bible is so much more than that. And that's the thing we want to understand. The Bible will give us wisdom, it gives us guidance, it gives us inspiration, but it also deals with the complexities of human existence. The world is a complex place.
Exactly.
So 1 or 2 bullet points is not going to fix everything
It's not going to cut it.
because life's just not like that. You know, and so a lot of times people think, well, the Bible is only this or only that, and it's just not. I saw a meme the other day that made me laugh. It showed this person kind of crawling. It's like they were crawling or something, and it said, you know, the Bible wants me to be prosperous and do everything well and have success and everything. And then above it, there's a person doing an elbow drop on it saying the book of Job. And it's like, okay, that's really true because you think, oh, the Bible says everyone's going to do this, everyone's going to do that. And that means God blesses them. But then you read the book of Job and you're like, okay, God loved Job, but he still went through hard times. Okay, that's confusing. That's the complex nature of the Bible and life.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to understand. It's not just a rule book.
No, I think you brought up such a good point just then. The Bible's complexity reflects reality because reality is complex.
Yeah.
We really want, like you said,
Yeah.
the 5 keys,
Yeah.
the 4 principles. If you just do this, then you're going to walk out and be good. The Bible's more realistic.
Yeah.
Because, for example, you look at the book of Proverbs, which is what we are challenging you to read, by
Yes,
the
we
way.
are.
It gives a lot of these great principles. Right after that is the book of Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
Ecclesiastes pokes a hole in all your dreams and says,
It
you
does.
know what, buddy? Sometimes great people fail,
Yeah.
and sometimes failures succeed, and it's wild. And so, like, after you read Ecclesiastes, you're like, maybe it won't work at all, you know? But it's not that Proverbs is true and that's a lie, or that Ecclesiastes is true and Proverbs is a lie. They're both true.
Yeah.
And that's what makes life complex.
Yeah.
But the Bible helps you see that in that lens.
Well, and we have to be careful that we read one rule in the Bible and we think, okay, that rule is for all time, all people, always.
That's
It's not true. You know, that law was for those people at those time. But if you understand the Bible and how to read it, you understand how that law fits with the character of God. And that's the thing you want to deal with. You know, a lot of times Paul, when he was writing the letters, that's what he was doing. He was helping the church understand the nature of God. So he would say it's not just about the rules, it's about the God above the rule. So when you understand that part of it, you understand, okay, the law may not fit my context today in a modern world, but let's look at the why behind the law. And that's what we can understand. And that's why the Bible is complex, because it gives us wisdom. It doesn't just give us rules.
I think you're completely right. Because the same piece of wisdom can apply differently in different situations.
Yes, it can.
Like,
Yeah.
this is one example that just popped in my head. If you look at the book of Exodus, they have this big festival called the Passover. And you're supposed to cook a sheep, and like everybody, you know, splits the meal and they
Yeah.
celebrate. But they're very specific. They were like, you have to boil this
Yeah.
lamb. You have to boil it. And then you look at the book of Deuteronomy, which is like fast forward probably 50 years. And it's got the same festival. And then it says, roast the lamb. And you're like, wait a second. Why is it saying it differently? The Bible's fake. But then you look and you see when the first Passover happened, they had to get out of Egypt quick.
Yep.
So boiling it was quicker than a slow roast.
Yeah.
So like it's literally just different cooking instructions based on
Yeah,
where you're
yeah.
at. So like if you just look at the Bible and say it's a rule book,
Yeah.
and then you read the book of Exodus, you're like, well, I've got to boil all meat from now on.
Yeah.
Because the Bible says you have to boil it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the danger of a rule book mentality.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to start drawing conclusions that just aren't true.
Yeah.
So you have to begin to look at the deeper wisdom.
Yeah, and that's why the Bible gives you a lot, because then you look at the context. And context helps you understand the rules, understand what's going on. You know, you can read about Solomon and, you know, all the wives and concubines he had. And you could think, so as long as I'm under 1,000, I'm good. That's not the point. The point is it showed how messed up Solomon got because he wasn't doing what God said. Mm-hmm. He was trying to have all these wives and all this, and it messed him up. Mm-hmm. That's the point. When you try to get more and more and more, especially in relationships, it's not going to ever come to a good thing. God shows all these people who had multiple wives. He also shows all the problems they had because they weren't living his design. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to understand. A lot of things in the Bible are there to show you this is why you don't want to do it, because it causes issues and causes problems. So what God does is he doesn't just give us a rule. He gives us the why behind the rule. Mm. You know, sometimes parents, you know, they tell their kids, you know, do this. And the kid's like, why? And don't ask questions, just do it. But then when it comes to God, we want to know why. And you know what? He tells us. Mm-hmm. He tells us the why. And that's why we want to understand the Bible.
Mm-hmm. The Bible, a lot of these stories, like you mentioned, mm-hmm. show the reality of what it looks like when we don't live according to God's standards.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the Old Testament, my friend, almost everybody got it wrong.
Yeah.
Pretty much. There's like one or two people that did pretty good, mm-hmm. like Joseph.
Yeah.
And Daniel.
Yeah.
But pretty much everybody in between was awful. And even Daniel almost passed out every time he had a vision. Yeah. So like the point of the Bible, we're going to talk about this later. The Bible's not super flattering towards human nature, mm-hmm. but it's very real.
Yeah.
And so you can't treat the Bible as if it's just a copy paste rule book, mm-hmm. or else you're going to walk away with a lot of very wrong conclusions.
Yeah.
So take that rule book, this is my instruction book mentality, set it to the side.
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit more complex than that.
Yeah.
Yes, you can get wisdom for life. Yes, you can learn important principles, but it can't be I read that, therefore I copy paste, we're good. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit more deeper.
Yeah.
The second thing that the Bible is not a scientific textbook.
Yeah, the Bible isn't a book that you read like we would read a modern day science book. You know, where the book says, here's the proposal, here's the test, here's the conclusion. And a lot of people think that's what the Bible is. Well, if I read it, I'm going to ask it a question, the Bible's going to give me the answer, and I'm going to go on about my life. Well, it doesn't do it that way. We have to understand that the Bible was written before the scientific method and all these things that we have, before encyclopedias and all that. And what the Bible did is the Bible taught things in a style for that day, and also in a style that's long-lasting for people of all different types and all different ways. Because you think about it, the Bible has been around for a long time, mm-hmm. and it's gone through many iterations of, you know, the Greeks, the Romans, mm-hmm. the Babylonians. You know, we talked about all that. And then even today, you know, you got the 1700s, the 1800s, the 1900s. Look at how much society's changed. Yet the principles of the Bible still reflect and can help us because it's not a scientific book. It's just like watching an old movie. Mm-hmm. Have you ever watched an old movie, like the old King Kong movies from the 1920s?
Yeah.
You know, at that time, those movies were incredible. People were like, man, the greatest special effects mm-hmm. ever. Now we look at it and we're like, okay, I could make that on my phone and probably do a better job.
Better, yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't age well. The Bible ages well because it's not a scientific book. What it is it's wisdom for us. And that's the thing we want to understand.
Yeah, the Bible is often much more concerned with the why questions than the how questions.
Yeah, that's
to
good.
put it in nerdy language, the Bible is a lot more concerned with the metaphysical questions than it is the physical questions.
Yeah.
So like if you're looking at Genesis chapter 1 and you look at it in the context of how God spoke to those people, you're going to reach some amazing conclusions that you would not have reached if you're just like, this is going to be chapter 1 of the science book.
Yeah.
Wait a second,
Yeah.
where's the carbon monoxide, blah, 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 and this adding with that, and what about space, we have to approach the Bible with humility because we have a very real thing called chronological snobbery,
Yeah.
which is where we think that, we know. The people back then didn't understand the world. We understand the world.
Yeah.
People back in the 1800s, they didn't get it.
Yeah.
We get it.
Yeah.
We have iPhones now, so we're pretty much a big deal.
Yeah. Well, it's true. It's like you look in the past, medical journals published the positive benefits of leeches and getting bad blood out. They thought they were top of the line.
Cutting edge.
Today we look back and go, oh my goodness.
You're an idiot.
But at that time, they thought it was great. When electricity started really going out, medical people used electricity to cure things. Hey, if we zap you enough, it's going to make you better. Okay, it didn't. But at that time, they thought they knew. We know. Well, that's the whole thing. We have to understand that sometimes we don't know. Just because we're technologically advanced doesn't mean we're wise. And that's what the Bible does. It helps us understand that because God speaks through the people of their day, but he gives wisdom that lasts the ages. And that's what we want to understand why the Bible is so important.
And why it's worth the work of understanding it on its own terms. And we'll talk about that in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
But we just want you to understand it is not your science book. It is the goal of the Bible is not to lay everything out in a very specific, rigorous, detail-oriented, physical-focused process. That's not the Bible's concern. So if you walk into it and think that it's going to give that to you, you're going to be surprised. Probably a little disappointed.
It's so much more like a lot of people approach it like it's some kind of self-help book. I'm going to read the Bible and it's going to tell me exactly what to do in this situation. Well, a lot of times what it'll do is give you principles that if you begin living those principles, it'll affect that situation. But it may not necessarily sit there and say, should you watch Netflix or not? But we'll talk about how you should use your time wisely and you can apply that. But it's not a self-help book. It's something more. Because a lot of times people approach the Bible, and this is the funny part, especially today, you watch a YouTube video and a guy's like, I found the secret. I know. Throughout centuries, nobody has seen this, but I was reading my Bible today and I've seen the secret number that tells us everything about everything. That's not really what it's about.
Yeah.
The Bible is not a thing that's designed to help you. The Bible is a thing designed to show you God. It's not about you, it's about him. And that's an important distinction we need to have and understand that.
No, I think it's true because your mentality with a self-help book is I'm going to this to make my life better. And the goal of this author is to make my life better.
Yeah.
Will reading the Bible help you personally? Absolutely. It's definitely going to do that. But the benefit that you get, it's a secondary benefit. The primary purpose is the revelation of who God is and the story of him and humanity. It's inviting you into a bigger story rather than going like, oh, this whole thing's leading up to me.
Yeah.
I am the pinnacle of humanity now. The whole goal of the Bible is to show that Jesus is the pinnacle.
Exactly.
And why that is. Everything points to him. But if you walk into it with a self-help mentality, you're going to get some weird stuff from it. Like I remember, I will never forget this. I had a class in college, and it was a guy who was explaining, it was essentially like the method for a miracle. And so what it was is it looked at the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000, and it broke down each step of what he did to show you the 5 steps to a miracle. So it's like he looked up to heaven. So our goal in looking up to heaven is to be able to see the Father in worship. He lifted up the bread. So we have to give him everything in a posture of surrender. He broke the bread, which means we have to surrender who we are and submit it all to him. He passed it to others, which is the principle of delegation and moving the spiritual power, and then passing it to where it overflows. It was something along those lines. And I just remember seeing it and being like, I'm almost 100% sure that when Matthew included that story, he was not thinking about giving the 5 keys to a miracle. almost for sure. I think he was pretty concerned with showing people who Jesus was,
Yeah.
And we have to be careful because we'll do that.
Yeah, we will.
We'll be like, oh, dude, the 3 principles for making my life better right here. And if you read the whole Bible through that context, it's going to mess up the way that you view it.
Yeah, because what you're doing is you're looking at it through the lens of a mirror.
That's
And
that's
you're
good.
saying the Bible is all about me. And it's not. The Bible is about God. Now, it's about your relationship with him, what he's done for you, but it's really about him. So when we approach it, this is for me to understand him more, not to understand myself more. Now, in his mercy and grace, he helps you understand yourself. He shows ourselves sometimes in ways we don't like. He speaks truth, like Jesus always spoke truth to people, but it was really about him. And when we do that, we understand that it's not a self-help book. It's not for me. It's not scientific. It's a revelation of God done on his terms.
No, I think you're right. And I think we mentioned this last week, but I just want to hit on it one more time. People assume the Bible's irrelevant in the modern world, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not irrelevant, I promise you. I've experienced the benefits in my own life. The Bible was written at a different time, in a different context, 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. 2,000 to 3,000 years ago is when it was written. And so there's a reality to, you're going to have to do some work to understand what God was saying to them in their context so that you can gain those eternal principles for your context. Is that work? Yes. But it's almost like digging for treasure. The work leads to untold rewards. It's still valuable today.
Yeah, and what God does is he speaks to us about the universal human experience. Because no matter what the time frame is, no matter what modern stuff we have or what primitive stuff we have, God's word still applies to us. It still applies to us in all of life's challenges. Because we've always had people who think that they're the center of the universe and they try to take from us. That's a common theme. We have people today who do that. We have people who are full of pride. You know anyone full of pride? Bible covers that. There's people who cheat on their spouses. The Bible talks about that. There's kids who rebel. The Bible talks about that. So it really deals with the universal human experience. So no matter what time frame we live in, it applies to us. And that's what we want to see, that just because it's an older reference doesn't mean the Bible is outdated. It doesn't mean it doesn't help us. Because God designed it to be wisdom literature to give us wisdom and not just answer our little question today about should I wear this shirt or that shirt. That's not what it's for.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. And the goal of the Bible is not to be video camera footage.
Yeah.
I think that's what we expect with that science textbook mentality. We want, give me every detail. How tall was David? What color were his eyes? We want all these details. The Bible is particularly sparse with details on purpose because it wants to require you to think about it. It was designed to require more of the reader than a lot of modern stuff. I thought of this while you were talking. The Bible is not outdated. It's time tested.
That's good.
It has withstood the rigor of time and a lot of people who were against it.
Yeah.
And so you're going to this source that has worked for all of history and will work beyond your lifetime. So we get to be invited into that. It shows who God is, how he spoke. If you want to understand God, read Scripture because you're going to get this amazing picture of who he is. And it's not, like we said just a second ago, it's not a video camera footage.
Yeah.
It's more like a mosaic. Each paragraph of each chapter of each book in this collection, it's like putting a bunch of pieces together that shows you this amazing mosaic of how God is.
Yeah, and we want to be careful that we don't approach it and think that, well, because we're modern, we have, technology, that we're so smart. Because if you notice, like the internet's been out for a while. We've had it for a while. World hadn't gotten any better. It's not fixed the world. We can communicate faster and better than ever before. We're still messed up. We still have wars. We still have stuff going on. We have groups that hate each other. If anything, the internet's kind of added to that. And so what we want to do is understand, hey, I need something that's more timeless. And I'm not saying everything modern is bad. What I'm saying is it's not going to fix it.
Yeah.
We need wisdom, and that's what the Bible offers us.
Absolutely. So hopefully by dispelling some of these misconceptions, the fact that the Bible is not a rule book, it's not a self-help book, it's not a scientific textbook, it's not irrelevant. By dispelling some of these misconceptions, I hope you can approach the Bible with a fresh perspective and with a level of appreciation for the fact that if you agree to go on this journey of reading Scripture, it will change you. And now, it's a long-term journey. It doesn't happen overnight, but it is so worth it.
Yeah.
So our challenge to you is to continue reading that passage from Proverbs. Ask God to show you his truth. And I believe that he's going to speak to you. Now, when I say speak, I don't mean an audible like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's more of when you read something, it jumps out to you.
Yeah.
You think about it. It begins to shift the way that you think about life.
Yeah. And when we say Proverbs, understand, if you didn't listen to the last show, the proverb of the day. What we do is say, take the day of the week. This show's coming out on July 10th. And so you would read Proverb 10 and read it and let God speak to you. Pray before you read and ask him to reveal himself to you. And he will. He'll show you things. And a lot of times he'll also reveal you stuff to you about yourself.
Yes.
And that's the key, because that's what he wants to do, is deal with you.
Just getting started is such a big thing.
It is.
It really is. And so our encouragement to you is to continue that. Keep it up. I think that if you continue to do this, it'll benefit you, because I know for my life, reading it has really, really benefited me. So keep doing that, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Thriving Man Podcast. If you want to check out more resources from David and Reese, you can go to thrivingman.com. We'll see you in the next episode.